Okay, it's recording now. We still have people filtering on, I can see though, and which is great. We have I don't know if you can see on your end because of my sharing the screen, but already we have 21 people, about 18 students, well, 17 students, which is great.
What kind of raffle prizes do people get to win?
Pretty cool stuff. Is like a Sugar Bush pass for next year, and
I know it's Dr. Weaver.
no, and I have nothing to do with this. I was just going to acknowledge the people who are really behind this. Tim, Tim Birmingham's on here. He's part of our career education center. I don't know if he overlapped with you, Molly and Kathryn, but Tim, are you all? Is your office involved in this Uplift program?
I mean, at this point, yes, we will be. I mean, I think we're going to cross over in a lot of different ways and support each other. But I think a lot of how we're doing that is still sort of being built up right now.
I see.
Yes, and I don't know what I'm sure you guys will introduce yourselves in a second. So yeah, I'm a career education coach in the career education office. I was class of 2002, so I got my 20-year reunion coming up this spring, and I think it was mentioned, but I am going to record the audio tonight. I know the video is being recorded too, and we're I'm hoping that the audio works. We're going to put it out on our Career Center podcast, which is relatively new. So,
cool.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
All right. Well, we have about 20 students, and a few more may filter in as we go along. But I think we should go ahead and get started. For the students, if you don't mind, please scan that QR code to the right, fill out the little Google form, and it'll enter you in for the prizes. The prizes and this night's session is sponsored by both Career Education and the Uplift program from St. Mike's, and it's a way of broadening your horizons, and that's what I think Molly and Kathryn will do for us this evening. This is the first session this year of the Career Conversations for the Life Sciences, which started, I believe, last year, that series. And we'll have another session in about a month. Does that sound right, Mark? Yeah, within the next month, there'll be another session that you can look out for advertisements for.
February 28th, I think, is the actual date, but I'll send out announcements.
Sure. And so let me just quickly introduce you to two great students and alumni of St. Mike's that are here as part of our careers in occupational therapy and physical therapy talks. We have Kathryn Record and Molly Roush, both graduated with biology majors in 2017. Kathryn went to UNE for OT school and graduated in 2019, has been practicing OT for about 2.5 years now, working at Communication Innovations Pediatric Therapy Centers. And then Molly Roush, who happens to be also my physical therapist, went to University of Vermont for PT and graduated in 2021. And works now just down the road at Essex Physical Therapy off Susie Wilson. So I will stop sharing the screen, and let me just see if I can figure out how to do that quickly. There we go. Then I'll let them speak. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm glad you reached out and asked us to do this, because I was chatting with Kathryn saying how it just felt like full circle, honestly, to be able to go to St. Mike's and, with the goals and aspirations of being in the medical field, and for me being a PT, and just to come back and be able to talk about it is kind of an honor. And like I said, full circle. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I echo all that Molly said. It's cool. So also Communications Innovations is in Wisconsin. So I moved to Wisconsin after I graduated from UNE, and I've been out here ever since. So if you're like looking for jobs in New England, not my company.
All right. So
Yeah,
do you want me to start things off a little bit?
go for it.
All right. So we were given a couple things or a couple prompts to talk to you all about today. So I'll just kick it off with why I chose this career path. So just for a reminder, I'm a physical therapist. I didn't 100% know that I was going to pursue PT like fully, which is why I think St. Mike's was a great option because I was a biology major. So that opened up a lot of doors because I wasn't specifically doing like a pre-med program. So I really enjoyed that I was able to just do biology and have other options other than just a medical profession. But anyway, I knew at some point, probably in high school, that I wanted to be in the medical field. I just didn't know what capacity. And I also knew that I wanted to help people get better and get the most out of their lives and just be able to participate in the things that matter the most to them. And I also wanted to have a more flexible work schedule. So in some healthcare careers, obviously a flexible work schedule isn't always an option, but I definitely found that with physical therapy specifically that I would have flexibility. So those are kind of the things that initially got me interested in wanting to be a PT.
And for me, it's kind of like not an opposite story, but I knew I wanted to be an OT since I was in like 7th grade. So the one interesting thing, I guess, is that I chose to go to St. Mike's, even though I knew I wanted to be an OT, knowing that there wasn't like a pre-OT program, because I thought the liberal arts education was just what I wanted for myself, even though I knew that I wanted to do the health career and specifically OT. And yeah, when I was in 7th grade, I attended a medical summer camp, which wouldn't be for everyone, but my grandfather was a doctor, my grandmother was a nurse, and it was at their hospital, and they wanted me to go. So I did and loved it. And I just remember an OT came in to talk about OT and PT, and just something about that talk like stuck with me. And I wanted to do it ever since then. And then I had a couple cousins that went through OT, and seeing how much it helped them just made me realize that that's what I wanted to do. So I like shadowed OTs in high school. And then once I got to St. Mike's, I did some more shadowing of OTs and started my graduate program 2 weeks after I graduated from St. Mike's. So it was a pretty quick turnaround there. But that's what worked well for me.
All right. So some other things that we kind of were thinking of chatting with you about is like, how did St. Mike's help contribute to me getting into this profession, or even what set me apart when I got to grad school? So initially, there was a pre-PT program at St. Mike's when I was applying to St. Mike's. I think that went away maybe my sophomore year. I don't really remember, but anyway. Having known that there was a pre-PT program also was something that piqued my interest in going to St. Mike's and being there. But in general, all the prerequisite courses that I needed were offered at St. Mike's, so it was great. I didn't have to go to take any of the additional courses at another like college campus or university, which sometimes is the case. But all the prereqs that I needed were offered at St. Mike's, so that was something that contributed. But in general, what I felt set me apart, especially when I got to grad school, was we have to do so many presentations. I felt like we had to do a lot of public speaking at St. Mike's and give a lot of presentations and a lot of small, intimate classroom settings where you had to communicate one-on-one. And that wasn't the case with a lot of my classmates when I got to grad school. And I could see that really set me apart from them. Whereas maybe I wasn't always scoring the highest on my exams once I got into PT school. Whenever we had to do like group presentations or projects or meet with people in the community, or even now when I'm working with patients, I see that has set me apart to be able to talk to just about anyone. So that's definitely something that's helped out a lot.
Yeah, and for me, one of the reasons I chose St. Mike's, like I said before, is like the liberal arts sort of thing. So like a lot of my classmates at UNE came from like a pre-OT schooling. So I remember my first like couple weeks, it was like, oh, they know so much more about this career than I do. But then as we kept going, it was like, oh, but I have all this beneficial knowledge of the world and just anything and everything that you learn at St. Mike's. I was also really involved in MOVE, and I ran a mentoring program, the International Outreach. So I think that also, like kind of what Molly was saying, like set me apart from my classmates. I had a lot of volunteer experience and a lot of experience like creating programming and creating all this stuff that is beneficial once you're actually in grad school. And it was really helpful actually starting grad school 2 weeks after graduating, despite that being a crazy 2 weeks. Like I was already in the swing of writing papers and studying and like sitting in a library for hours, which I thought was super, super helpful as I was entering into a new world of grad school work. And also I have a distinct memory of one of my first advising, or maybe it's like second advising sessions with Lubs. And he was like, oh, yep, and you're gonna have to take physics. And I was like, wait. I thought for OT, physics isn't typically a prereq. And he was like, you're right. And then crossed it off my planning sheet for all my prereqs and how to get those all done in time. And like, that was the best feeling. I was like, sweet, I'm good. I can do all my like psychology classes and those things that are more OT geared than having to take physics, which was wonderful. So yeah.
All right. So kind of what I wanted to get into was a little bit of what the path to PT school looks like in general, but also what it looked like for me. So different than what Kathryn did, where she went right into grad school after graduating from St. Mike's. I took a year and I used my bio degree to work as a quality assurance technician for a local manufacturer in Vermont. And for me, I felt like that was a really great opportunity because it gave me like a Vermont residency. So working for a year allowed me to, once I applied to UVM, be considered an in-state student, which if that's something that, if you're thinking and considering the money aspect of grad school, being able to do something like that does make a huge difference. So that's just a little bit of my little side note of what I did before PT school. But the path to getting there, I won't go into the classes specifically unless afterwards people have questions. But there are, I think, there's a decent number of prerequisites, but like I said earlier, they're all offered at St. Mike's. So you'll be all set if you take those. But how to be a strong applicant and to kind of stand out when you are applying to PT school, and specifically things that, like Kathryn was saying, that we could do at St. Mike's, and then I did as well, was like clubs, the extended, like the service trips, trying to remember what they're all called, but we did a couple of like extended service trips, and taking advantage of any opportunity you can to get into the community, but especially like traveling if you can, and it's an opportunity through those trips across the country, just because it gives you that opportunity to see people from different backgrounds, and really does set you apart. So those are things that just made me a better applicant for PT school. But while I was there, I also did observational hours at, funny enough, the same clinic that I work at now. So I observed a local PT. We have a really great community around here. If you're looking to get in just to see if PT is the direction you want to go in, the clinics are so willing and able to support students right now. So I would say those are things that can really set you apart and prepare you for applying to grad school.
Yeah, and I've said it before, but when I was applying to grad school, I kind of took into account applying to only places that I actually wanted to live, which I know a lot of people kind of just apply to a bunch of places, but also talking about like the money aspect, applying to grad school can be pretty expensive, especially if you end up having to take the GRE and all of that stuff. So I decided to only apply to 2 colleges, and that just worked out really well for me. In my like junior and senior year of St. Mike's, I was also doing observation hours, but I would do that when I went home for like spring break. I observed like a school OT for a couple days, and just was in contact with those people, which was helpful. And then, yeah, also what Molly was saying, just getting involved on campus can really set you apart as an applicant. Like, for instance, I did move and I ran the mentoring group, and that was my main thing, but that really showed me as a strong applicant because I truly managed a group of kids, and I'm a pediatric OT. So I think that helped show like that I was really passionate of working with kids and working with people from all over the world. And I also studied abroad, which of course you don't have to do, but it was a really cool experience and allowed me to show these awesome experiences that I had and how they would relate to my future profession of working with lots of different people.
All right, so kind of going in order here. How to succeed in grad school? It's a great question. Clearly, Kathryn and I, we did succeed because we made it out the other end. But I would say I wrote down a few things that I found when I really thought about it to be the most, I don't know, helpful. Was first is establishing yourself with professors, which I found to be easy, and I think that's because of St. Mike's. Having those small, intimate classroom settings made it so much easier to feel comfortable talking to our professors. So then when I went to grad school, I felt like I could just carry that over there too. And that helped out a lot, whether it was having to, ask for advice from a professor, or just go in and talk to them about an exam before or after, or, it made it so much easier to succeed in PT school, was having a good relationship with my professors, because that's not something that a lot of other students had. If they went to a larger university, they just felt uncomfortable seeking out advice or help from our professors. So that was one thing. I'm not going to list off all of the things I wrote down, but I would say also, if you haven't already, finding a note-taking strategy that works best for you and that can kind of be concise. When I was at St. Mike's, I don't know what everyone does now, but I was still printing out all my slides and writing by hand on them. And when I got to PT school, everyone else seemed to have like an iPad or some sort of device that they are writing everything down on the slides on that. So really just making sure you have a good way of doing that. That's important now. It's also going to be important later. And then I think the last one I have in here is really like finding 2 or 3 good study partners or people that you feel comfortable studying with. Even if you're the type of person who knows you study best alone, these professions are very hands-on, interacting with people and patients and clients. So it's equally as important, even if you're good at studying by yourself, to have that contact with 2 or 3 other people who are also just going to hold you accountable, and make sure you're trying to meet up with them like once a week to go over the things you're struggling with. So that's it.
Yeah, I agree with everything Molly just said, especially the professors. And yeah, St. Mike's set us up perfectly for that. Like the amount of times I was in the bio professor's offices just asking so many questions allowed me to be really comfortable doing that with my OT professors. And I built really strong connections with them. And it's cool, like, especially, I guess it's great to have connections with all your professors, but it's really cool to have connections with grad school professors because they are in the field that you are going to be in. So they are going to be super strong references for you. They're going to be your colleagues as soon as you graduate and be like all my professors made a point of that. Like I had an email or something, they're like, welcome to the field, and like, so great to have you as a colleague. I'm like, how am I your colleague now? That's insane. But it's really cool. And then also working with groups is awesome. That helped me a lot. Like we had a group of like 4 or 5 of us who would study in the library together, and it was really nice to be able to just look up and ask the question, because you're all doing the same work. You all have the exact same classes. You're all focused on just that work. So it's helpful to have the people around you to support you. And that ended up being super helpful when studying for the board exam as well, because that is a stressful test to study for. So having people around you that are going through the same thing is super helpful. And then also I'm just echoing everything Molly said with this, but with the note taking, I remember showing up for my first couple of days of class with just a notebook, because that's what I did at St. Mike's, and trying to write down everything they said, and it was impossible. And I did not use those notebooks for like the rest of my 2 years at uni, and started like downloading PowerPoints and typing in notes there. And that was much more sustainable for me. And then, yeah, I feel like I just agree with everything Molly said. I don't have too much more to add other than just saying everything she said was correct.
Okay. So now that I'm out of grad school and working, which I'm sure there'll be questions potentially about what that looked like and what it took to get to that point. But I want to talk a little bit about what my daily work life looks like. So right now, I work I didn't say it earlier, I'm an outpatient orthopedic PT, or like kind of like just a general PT right now, working in a private clinic. And I work 4 10-hour days. And I usually, as long as no one cancels or no shows, we'll work or we'll see 9 patients a day. And that can be a combination of like follow-up appointments or initial evaluations. It really just depends how the day plays out. And so like for an example, today I wrote down some of the patients that I worked with today. So someone someone came in with like knee osteoarthritis, someone else with sciatic nerve pain and low back pain, rotator cuff strain, someone else who was post-op after a shoulder surgery. So a lot of it for what I'm seeing is orthopedic based, but I do also work with, people for balance impairments or post-concussion. Right now, because of the pandemic too, I think we're seeing a lot more complex patients, but in general, that's sort of what I'm seeing more regularly right now. And I would say like the successes of my day-to-day like work and the successes I feel like I have in my profession is I get to help people get back to doing what they really love to do. And that's always been important for me. I get to teach people about their bodies and I get to educate people, which is just, I find it's really empowering for me to be able to do, but also to help people better understand what's going on with them. And especially to be able to give them peace of mind is, I love that part of my job. Being a medical resource for patients. So even if I can't necessarily be the one to help them with what's going on, I can point them in the right direction and be someone that they can have contact with so that they don't feel like they're kind of lost out there in the medical world, because it can get tricky and confusing. And then some challenges. I would say that a lot of social media would probably have people believe a lot of maybe maladapted things about their body, or just pop culture, or having perfect posture, or those sorts of things that we see like on social media all the time, like trying to help people realize what is and what isn't true that's out there is a challenge for sure. Some people don't want to hear it. Being a young therapist and a new grad is a big challenge sometimes, especially with older adults who just are like, what are you doing working with me? You're too young to be here. And they don't always take you seriously. And I would also say that the pandemic has been a challenging time to come out and be a new therapist, because like I said, people have a lot going on. whether they waited a long time to seek out medical attention, or they are also just lonely because they haven't seen anyone in a long time, or there's a lot of stress surrounding the pandemic. So I'd say like right now that's been challenging. But in general, like I do enjoy going to work every day and just making a difference in people's lives. So yeah.
So I also work 4 10-hour days. That's just how my schedule kind of shook out after being through telehealth for COVID for a long time, which was very challenging. So yeah, I work at a pediatric clinic. So my day looks a lot different than Molly's, I would say. Also just my caseload obviously looks a lot different. I think one of the biggest differences is in pediatric outpatient OT, you have kids for a long time. So some of the clients I've been seeing for 2.5 years. Like they're some of the first kids I like walk through the door, have been seeing them. And if they have really complex needs, then you will see them for a really long time. Because there's no quick solutions to a lot of the things that I see. And as kids, there's so much transition within the age range that I see. That like some kids might be super successful and they're doing really great, and then all of a sudden they start middle school and it's like, whoa, this is crazy. What do I do in middle school? And then we work through that, and then they enter high school and we work through that, and then they're looking for a job and work through that. So I think that's a really cool part of my job, is that we truly get to see these kids through their lives. And I feel like I kind of become a part of the family for some of these families. We joke we have one family that just started seeing a new speech therapist, but I've been seeing their son for 2.5 years, and they have not once emailed the speech therapist when they have to cancel speech therapy. They always email me because they know me really well, and they think that I'm like their one contact at this clinic. And I'm like, you can just email Rose and she will cancel your appointment. But it also just like shows how entwined in their lives I am. And what Molly was saying, being that resource, that parents feel comfortable emailing me and asking questions, and they want me a part of their IEP meetings, and they want my advice on how to best handle going to the dentist next week. And you see a lot of different things. Some of the diagnoses I see, like a lot of kids with autism, kids with Down syndrome, kids with just sensory processing disorders. I also have a school contract right now. So my company does school contracts. So I kind of get to be 2 OTs, which is a school OT and an outpatient OT, which are very different things. So that's been really interesting, just seeing how much difference there can be in one profession. And yeah, my days are never the same, never predictable, other than that I see the same kids at the same time every day, like per week, but then the kids can come in and it can be a completely different session than the week before. I've also treated more of like the musculoskeletal things. We have a program at my clinic called the Advanced Program, which is an intensive therapy program for kids. So a lot of cerebral palsy or like global developmental delay, things like that, where they're seen 5 days a week, 4 hours a day for 4 weeks. So it's super intensive therapy. And I'm on a team with some PTs, and usually I was the only OT. So I would see the kids twice a week, so for a total of 8 hours. And then the PTs would see them for the rest of the week. So it also like challenges your brain a lot. Also, I've done a lot in my career here. I'm also a feeding therapist now. So I work with kids with feeding challenges. Before COVID, I was also an aquatic therapist. So I did aquatics once a week, so in a pool with kids. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. And pediatrics is just one small part of OT. There's so much more. I have friends that work in hospitals, nursing homes, just other outpatient places. So there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of success and a lot of failure. A lot of I have things planned, but then it totally changes because the kid comes in and does not want to do that. But it's a very rewarding career, just seeing, like recently I discharged one of my clients that was one of the first kids that I'd ever started seeing at CI, and that was super emotional for me and super emotional for his family, just to reflect on the progress that he had made in the 2 years that I had known him, and just to see how bright his future is from here on out. It's just really cool connecting with these kids and with their families.
So for the most part, I think we've touched on all the things we wanted to gloss over, in that, like, what got us interested, why we went to St. Mike's, how it benefited us, and everything from there on out. So at this point, I think we are open for questions. I don't know how to do that, though. I don't know if that's a free for all or if there are comments. I don't really know. I haven't been on Zoom in a while, so.
I would encourage anyone to unmute and just ask their question.
Okay.
Everybody's shy to start with.
How long
I'll
does
start. Or unless someone else is going to start.
how long does it take to become an OT?
How long does it take to become a what?
I think he said OT, but we can answer for both so that everyone knows. So it depends. Obviously you're all at St. Mike's, so I'm not going to go the other route, but depending on the program, I think like 2 to 3 years. So I did a program that went through the summer, so started in May of 2019 and no, 2017 and graduated in May of 2019, but that was 6 full semesters, summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring. But I know there's other programs that still get summer breaks and stuff, so those end up being a little bit longer, but I would say on average 2 to 3 years.
And Kathryn, in that program, the only break you had was probably around winter or Christmas break?
Yeah, so we would get like a month off for Christmas, and then during the other semesters we'd get a couple weeks off, but one of those weeks was for a field work, where you'd be in the actual field, depending on what semester we were in. It was like at a school or at a nursing home. And then, yeah, I think we would get a couple weeks off in between semesters too, to just relax. But the only like long break was for Christmas, winter break.
Sorry, Molly.
Oh, no, it's okay. My program was about the same. It was a 2.5-year program without really any breaks. You know, we would have like your traditional longer, like some fall, spring, and then we would have two shorter summer ones, I believe. Honestly, I can't believe I've forgotten already, but it was a full, like, all year round, except for a break at Christmas time or during the holidays. And that's pretty consistent throughout like most programs, but there are others that can take up to 4 years. And that's usually because they do have a break in the summer and they also have longer like clinical affiliation and rotations.
So in the field of OT, is it typical for masters to be the terminal degree, and in PT it's typically a doctorate degree, or do I have that wrong?
No, those both correct on that. I know you can go on to get like more titles, in the sense that like you can go on to become like an oncology specialist or a sports medicine type specialist, but it doesn't necessarily require, it does require more schooling, but it's doesn't increase your degree beyond like a doctorate.
Yeah, and there are entry-level doctorate programs for OT. So for PT, I believe anyone that becomes PT is now going to be a DPT. For OT, it depends. So I chose to do a master's program because I'm not really interested in doing more research and things like that. So I just chose the master's program. But I work with some people that did an entry-level doctorate. So they did the same amount of school as me, but or maybe a little bit longer, but came out with a doctorate. But then there are post-professional doctorates as well, where I believe you can go like a clinical track or a research track, depending on what you're interested in. So like I might do that in my future. Right now, I don't see that. But if I ever want to become a professor, then you have to get your doctorate.
Did your programs like set you up for your career path? Like, did they put you into a job or did you have to kind of do that by yourself?
We definitely ended up having to do that on our own. What usually it looks like, and I'm sure Kathryn's was similar, is that while you're in either a PT or OT school and you're getting close to when you're going to start going out onto your affiliations or clinical rotations, at least for me, you get to pick from like a list. You say like, I ranked it from like 1 to 10. This is where I want to go. And those are just to get your experience while you're in school. So that just sets you up to figure out maybe what path you want to go down, whether you maybe want to be in a hospital or you want to be in like an outpatient clinic. So in terms of do they steer you in the direction or help set you up for getting a job? No, but they do, you do get the option kind of where you end up for your clinical rotations. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, so I know some of my classmates from when I graduated, like ended up getting their job because of our field work. So once we graduated, an opening had opened up at whatever company they had been at. So I think sometimes that happens. That was only a handful of people though. But basically, yeah, I guess we didn't mention, for OT and PT, you have a fieldwork part of your grad school experience. So for OT, you have 3 1 week long, or at least for UNE, there's 3 1 week long level 1 fieldworks that are very kind of low key, just learning a little bit more about different areas of the profession. And then you do 2 3-month long rotations. That one of them has to be in like rehabilitative side of things, and then one can be more specialized. So I had friends that did like a hand therapy rotation. I ended up doing a pediatric mental health rotation as my specialized one, and then I was actually at Fanny Allen for my rehab one for outpatient OT with like neuro rehab. But then I ended up moving to Wisconsin. So even had there been jobs available at either of those places, it wouldn't have worked out because my first place was in Maine. But yeah, so I had a couple peers that got set up to work at their current jobs because of their field work. But other than that, if they don't set you out with the job, you have to pass your boards first. So.
I believe Alyssa wants to ask a question.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if both of you could speak a little bit more on what like field work and like the clinical rotations entailed as a student and like what you did.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm not muted anymore. Okay. So what it looks like for me was I had to do 3 clinical rotations. The first one was 8 weeks long, and the next 2 were 12 weeks long. My first one was in an outpatient orthopedic setting. And usually that first one, it's not shadowing exactly, but for those first few weeks, it's like shadowing. You kind of watch what the therapist is doing, how they, how they interact with patients, but like how they do their initial evaluations, how they go about treating patients. And then gradually they start giving you more and more responsibility. So you'll be the one to go out and like greet the patient and bring them into to do like their initial evaluation, or you'll be the one coming up with the different tests and things to do. And then by the end of the first one, I wouldn't say you're not completely on your own by any means, but they want you to be taking at least like trying to take on, I think, like a half-time schedule. And then as you go on to the next one, so when I went on to my next 12-week one, they expect you to start up that much sooner as being the sole, like the only provider. You're never really supposed to be alone with patients, that you're supposed to have someone with you at all times, but you're supposed to be the one calling all of the shots. And that's kind of what that looks like. I can go into more detail, but I'll let Kathryn answer too.
So like I said, we had, for UNE at least, we had 3 one-week rotations that corresponded to the semester that we were in. So for the first one, actually, technically it was about a week, but we did it once a week for the whole summer. But they were having us just experience different places in the community. So it wasn't typically, like, it wasn't actually OT. I was actually at like with an activities director at a nursing home. So that was really just, how do you interact with people? How do you make connections? And how do you like plan fun things? So for the last day of that, we planned like a fairy tale day with the residents and did like a cooking task and like all this fun stuff. And then my next one was in a hospital, and for those week-long ones, it really was a lot of just observation, just seeing what that setting is like, learning about the documentation, what all goes into working in that setting. And then by the end of that week, you might be running like one session, but not really. Like, you're kind of just giving ideas to the therapist and seeing what they do, and trying to just challenge some of that clinical thinking and thinking through what you would do, even though you're not actually actively doing it. And then there are 2 12-week rotations that, similar to what Molly said, you're getting more independence with that. So I actually, from August to November, I had my first student where I was the like clinical instructor, which was also a really weird feeling. As an OT, you can be a clinical instructor after 1 year of practice. But that was also just crazy. Like, I feel like I haven't been in this career for that long, but to know that I'm now teaching someone was a wild feeling, but very cool. So the starting couple weeks of those are typically observation, just see what the setting is like, meet the caseload, meet whoever, like the coworkers, who you're going to work with, who you're collaborating with. And then as you go, it's expected that by the end of it, you are the sole person providing the treatment. In terms of the student that I had, I was still in the room with her, or I was still on the telehealth call with her. But she was the one doing all of that. She was the one doing all the documentation. She was the one doing all of the evaluations and writing those up. She just basically did my whole job for me. So that was a really stark transition to like the Monday when she left. I was like, all right, I have to do my job. This is going to be strange. But that's kind of what that looks like. And then, yeah, you do 2 of those. And most grad schools, my grad school at the time had us do those kind of in the middle of our 2 years. So we actually had a semester back at school after we finished our second fieldwork, which was really tough because we were like practicing OTs, like we're in the field, and then all of a sudden we're back to writing papers and doing group projects. And it was like, what is this? But they have since changed that, which I think also kind of goes back to that question about like finding jobs, because there was a lot of friends that were like, I could have a job, but we have to do another semester of school. So hopefully something will be open in 5 months. But now with having, like, you'll end your time with your field work, and then you graduate and you're done, which I think kind of gives you a better like slide into the profession, I guess.
A related question, did both of your schools provide you support in finding all your field sites and setting those up? And similarly, was there any support in finding housing in those remote locations?
Yeah, good question. So at least at UNE, they are the ones that assign your field work. And actually, I think if you went out of UNE and like found your own field work, you would be taken out of the program for some like liability reasons, because like they're the ones that are promoting you and saying like whatever. So they were very strict about that. So we had a fieldwork professor, like that was their whole job, was to set up fieldwork for us. So we gave our top 5 for each category, and they would set that up for us. Some places for fieldwork required interviews. I didn't have to do an interview for either of mine. And then in terms of housing, they did not help with that. So that was up to you. So I could tell a crazy story about my time in Vermont, but I won't. With the housing, it was not a good situation. Molly knows. I stayed on her couch for a couple days while I was figuring it out. But typically, I feel like you just sublet a place, or if you like put places where you have family that you could stay with them or stay with friends or things like that. I ended up subletting a couple of places for my times.
Thank you. Other questions?
I have 2 questions actually, and they're related. I'm just curious, looking back, you know, in the application process, what were some of the strategies that you used to get in and get those observation and patient contact hours? And I'll hold the second half of the question.
So application process, like while we were at St. Mike's.
Yeah, so leading into the into your application process, I know some of the schools require either observation or patient contact hours, and you had talked about your observation hours a little bit. I work with a lot of students who are in that process and talking about where to look and how to find, you know, those contacts, those places where they can get those hours. So I'm just curious what advice you might have for how a student leading up to their grad school applications can work those into their schedule.
Yeah, so I was lucky in that the place that I shadowed at, the owner is a mutual family friend. So that helped out. Not everyone had opportunity. So I would say though, like even just talking to her, I know that she is so open to like if she gets sent an email by a student who's interested in the profession, or if you know, they reach out and provide like they give a phone call or something and leave their name. I know at least at my clinic, they're really great at getting back to students. We have a couple people who right now they work at, usually it's at our other location, but they're students like maybe at UVM, or there might also be high school students who know that they're interested in the PT profession and they just want to get time spent in a clinic. And so sometimes there are even just job opportunities available at other clinics where you can just be helping with like paperwork, or helping, like, it doesn't sound glamorous, but like helping clean up treatment rooms. And then if, you know, there's free time, you get to chat with therapists and have that kind of opportunity. So I'd say like even looking up local clinics and not being afraid to just send an email if an email is provided, or give a call to say like, hey, I'm going to St. Mike's, I'm interested in the profession and was just wondering if I could get some contact hours.
Yeah, and that's what I did too. I just called the hospital in my hometown, which is where I did, I think, all of my shadowing, and just said like, hey, I'm a student interested in OT, and they were super open to that. And they were great because they're like the OTs that contract, like it's a very small town. So for the whole town, so I was able to say I'm interested in pediatrics, and they were like, okay, here's our one OT that goes to the school. You're gonna work with her. We'll get you contacted with her. And I think I got her email to set that up. But had I been interested in outpatient, they would have set me up there. So yeah, just give a call to whatever setting you're interested in, I think would be the first step.
That's great. Thank you. And I love that you brought up, accessing the personal network, because I think that can be overlooked sometimes. That's great. So the second half of my question is sort of just in that grad school application process, what advice do you have for students who are sort of, they're balancing finishing up their undergrad with applying to schools and getting their application materials together? And I've worked with some students and they have a big list. So any thoughts on how to balance that out, resources that you use to balance that out and still be present and submit, really good applications?
I guess that question would be more for me, since Molly did it after what she was working.
Right.
I'm trying to think back to what, 5.5 years, 6 years ago, something like that. 5 years ago, I guess. Yeah, I ended up only applying to the 2 schools, like I said, just because I was thinking of where I'd want to live and didn't want to apply to schools just to apply to schools, because I was also okay with doing a gap year if I needed to. And yeah, that's like, it feels like a long time ago, even though it wasn't really that long ago. I think it's just, seeing what schoolwork you have and trying to balance that. And then if okay, on Fridays, like I think my senior year, I don't think I had classes on Fridays, maybe, I don't remember. But I think I would set aside that time to work on those applications, and just knowing when those deadlines for the applications are is definitely important, because I know for UNE, I didn't realize it was like rolling admissions. Like I thought it was just due in, let's say October. But it turns out it was rolling admissions. So a lot of people were getting contacted already for interviews and things like that, when I was like, wait, I just tried to get it in. So try to be organized with that, because every school is going to have a different deadline, difference in if it's rolling admissions or if it's just they get all the applicants on one day and that's when they start looking at them. And then kind of triaging it from there of, okay, this one's the first one. I think there was a common app sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's all coming back to me now. Like a common app sort of thing that you would fill out. And then if there was supplementary things for the school, I think you could do it through that common app. And again, like I think using the resources around you, like having friends, if they can read, it's only like a 500-word essay, if they can take a look at it. My parents took a look at it, and I'm pretty sure I had some of these professors as help in that area too. Like, can you help me through this or help me better this? And having them as, can't think of the word now, references. So like, knowing that they would give you a strong reference if they called you. But yeah, trying to set aside time where you're not thinking about your undergrad schoolwork to just focus on getting it done, but knowing that you can take your time too, depending on the school.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathryn. And Molly, I imagine balancing work with your application too is challenging.
Yeah, it was. I remember it being a bit of a hassle, but I know like you also have to, you don't have to take your GRE. Not every program requires it, but that was another aspect of some of the schools I was applying to required it. So studying after working a full day, no, that's not fun. Then it sounds like bad advice, but it just has to get done. So it does get done. And I think the biggest thing that I remember wanting to prioritize was, if you are going to be asking your professors for references, give them time, because they're busy people and they don't love to have it, like sprung upon them a week before it's due. And just opening up those lines of communication as early as possible and as soon as you know when those are due, so that you all have time on your side.
Do you have any advice on writing a good personal statement or application essay?
I would say be honest, because they're going to be able to like recognize if this is your true story as to why you want to become an OT or whatever the question is, like right from the heart, because that's what they want in their programs. They want people that are passionate about the profession that they're going into, because otherwise, why would you be going to more school for something like this? So yeah, I would say just be honest and tell your true story. Don't try to fluff it too much, because I think they can see through that too. They read a lot of those essays, and I think they can pick out what like the true stories are versus this like fantastical story about whatever it may be.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I don't have much else to add other than like you've probably people always I remember sitting down and being like, I feel like I've done nothing to to use as an example for this personal statement or this essay. But then you can really turn, you can really turn almost any experience into a pretty good personal statement. A lot of the things that I did at St. Mike's, maybe they didn't specifically relate to the PT profession, but you can always pull on something, especially if it's something you're really excited about or passionate about. Like they're going to care more about how excited you were about, like, I don't know, that specific experience than they were about if you, oh, I got in and I, shadowed the best PT in the country or whatever. So just like what Kathryn said, being honest and explaining why you're just passionate about it.
Thank you. We're coming up on the hour. Is there any other last minute questions?
Paul, you're muted.
Oh, I was holding down the space bar, but it wasn't working. Thank you for letting me know, Molly. Everyone else was going to let me go on for about 6 minutes before they told me. Well, I was really interested to hear, in particular, Kathryn say that she knew she wanted to be an OT from a young age, but decided to come to a liberal arts school anyway. So I'm wondering, just from the both of you, from your perspective with hindsight now, was it a good choice? Or would you do anything differently for your undergrad education?
I 100% would do it again. St. Mike's was the perfect place for me. I met some of my best friends who are now in this wonderful profession with me, which is very cool. And I just loved my experience at St. Mike's, like being involved in MOVE, getting to study abroad, being on a small campus where I got to really know my professors. I wouldn't have changed anything about that. And I feel like getting my degree still in 6 years was totally feasible and great. And I feel like talking to some of the classmates in my class that had done like the pre-OT program sort of thing, it's like, yeah, they might have been a little bit more prepared in those first couple weeks because they knew the founding people that started OT and who I didn't know yet. But it all kind of evens out, and you still learn at the same pace, regardless of if you had that OT, like pre-OT background or not, because we all took the same classes. Like I still had anatomy with this awesome professor and like we all learned all of that, and we're all kind of on the same playing field. But yeah, I would not change going to St. Mike's in a heartbeat.
I would completely agree. I wouldn't change anything about it. Not only did I meet like wonderful people and friends and professors and people that I'm still in touch with to this day, but like I had said earlier, just not having to go through a specific like pre-PT program and having that opportunity to take like ecology classes and evolution and things that you wouldn't maybe traditionally think that you'd be taking if you're going to be going into a medical career has like, yeah, I don't know, even anecdotally has made it so that I can communicate with my patients so much better. I can talk about things other than just your like PT things and their body. And so I think that all of the different opportunities I had to take liberal arts courses just has made me feel like a much more well-rounded student and PT in general. So I wouldn't change it at all.
And Molly, when you said you sometimes have old patients that tell you you're too young to be doing what you're doing, was one of those patients Dr. Weaver?
Yep. No, definitely not.
Oh, I was so happy when she was assigned to me, yeah, and so it worked out so perfectly. I was immediately comfortable with her.
Yeah, and
Thank
that's
you
the
both
great
for
thing about
doing
working with kids. They think that you're way older than you are. Like they don't realize that you know nothing yet. So it's great.
Well, we can't thank you enough, both of you, for joining us and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I'm so happy for both of your successes, and I hope that that we can continue to stay in touch as we have been. And I see people are doing the little clapping symbols, so you know, like that's basically where we're at. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I think the one thing I want to say is I know that Professor Weaver has my contact information. So if there's anyone who, I'm not going to say they have to reach out to you to get that information, but if anyone wanted to reach out, even if they had questions afterwards or are potentially interested in coming in and shadowing, definitely feel free to reach out.
Yes, and I'm happy to share that with anyone who would like that information. Yeah, and in fact, the SXPT website lists your contact info, and I think Kathryn, the same for you, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of trickier to find on that website, but
I have the
eventually,
contact.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
do have the contact info, and I'd be happy to share it.
Mhm.
So again, thank you so much. And I'm going to put back up on the screen, just for anybody who came on a little bit later and would like to do the raffle, the information for that. So that's back up on the screen here. And so this QR code, if anybody would like to register and be in that raffle. So thanks again. And thank you to the Uplift program and career education. And thank you to both of our speakers tonight. Thanks very much.
Of course, our pleasure.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having
Molly,
us.
Kathryn.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. That's great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was very fun.
Hi, Molly and Kathryn. We miss you.
You too.
Definitely.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.